Hey everybody, welcome to Heroes from Hyperspace. I am Space Marine Steve. You may recognize me from Play on Tabletop here at Hyperspace Hobbies as well, and I am joined by my friend Ian.
Hello everybody.
And of course by my friend Michael.
Welcome.
And we are here to discuss a couple of things, all Warhammer related today.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what is the most Warhammer related is the fact that Hyperspace Hobbies has been fairly quiet. We've been starting to pick up some traction over the fall, and we were hoping to keep that going, but alas, when you are learning to do all of this, it comes with some bumps, bruises. There are some real potholes on the road to YouTube, and ours came in the form of warp storms, I think, or.
We lost a few astropaths for sure.
Yeah. So we tried our best to pray to the Omnissiah to fix all of our technical problems, but alas, no. And we ended up losing actually 2 episodes of this.
Yep.
Yeah. And then additionally, we've lost some minor content too, like some of the other videos. One of the larger projects we've been working on right now is kind of on a bit of a break because we're just having technical problem after technical problem, but hopefully we're getting things back on track.
Who would have thought that dropping a latte onto a computer could not be prayed away?
It was an eggnog latte. And yes, the Omnissiah has got nothing for the eggnog lattes. Yeah. So that's the story there, why you've seen just a bit of a slowdown. So hopefully we can amp back up. But that would be the reason for that. So let's talk about some cool stuff, though. So recently, very, very recently, there has been like a merging of great powers in the galaxy. Amazon and Games Workshop Warhammer are starting to stitch themselves together with the help of Henry Cavill, actually, who came out as being like basically like a showrunner for what is going to be some kind of like Warhammer 40K series on Amazon.
Mm-hmm. Very exciting news.
Yeah, so I love like fantasy series and stuff like that. Like I've watched, and Amazon does do some good work with like Rings of Power and stuff. However, what do you think this? Because they haven't told us anything. There's no storyline that we know. All we know is that Henry Cavill is on it somehow.
Yep.
And that it's going to be something.
If anyone's got the physique of a space marine, you just put some stilts on him and you're good.
He doesn't even need the stilts.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm excited to see what they're going to do. What kind of like, there's so many different stories to choose from throughout the universe. Like, is he going to be a space marine? He could be an inquisitor. That would be also kind of in his alley. Because like The Witcher is like sort of like an inquisitor in a lot of ways, like demon hunting and all that sort of thing. And he's kind of filled that role really well. So
yeah, and I've heard that he always really wants to be true to the source material. So hopefully with him being a producer or whatever on this, he'll really push for it because Amazon's going to they're just there for the money.
Yeah.
Fair enough, and that's their job.
Games Workshop stock went through the roof as soon as they heard that Amazon and Games Workshop are together. Well, it just went.
They couldn't have had a better lead man for it, really.
Yes.
Someone passionate about the IP.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
And apparently now has a lot of free time because DC has dropped everything.
That's fine. They suck anyway.
Yeah. All the DC stuff is done.
Yeah, it's gonzo.
James Gunn just does the
went on a murder spree, just killed everything.
Well, I mean, if you're trying to restart this engine,
if the engine's
you
failing,
got to get rid of that. I mean, like all those movies were, some of them were okay. They had cool like snippets. Parts of it was really entertaining, but as a whole, most of the movies really fell flat in comparison to what Marvel was doing.
Oh my God.
Marvel just had this thing going. It was just perfect.
No comparison, although the new Marvel stuff now.
Yeah, I haven't really.
Now they're sticking to the formula, right? Where I feel like DC never had a formula. It was always like, we're creating this movie and it's going to be its own thing.
I thought their formula was, let's take something that's already been done really well in cartoon and then just make it terrible in real life.
Yeah, cartoon, comic, anything.
Yeah, their cartoons are amazing. They're so good. Yeah, they literally just took the exact Batman vs Superman, great example. Cartoon is fantastic, and it's the exact same thing, but the real life one doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Though I did really like Wonder Woman. I thought Wonder Woman.
That's the
first one.
That's the one good DC movie. Although I did enjoy Black Adam. It's not amazing, but I did enjoy it quite a bit.
Haven't seen.
It was a good action movie.
Yeah.
So, my question, jumping us back into the Warhammer universe.
Wise.
Let's jump right back into there. Jumping back into that, my question to the two of you would be, and you can take a second to think about it. My question to the two of you would be, what story do you think is the most accessible to people that do not already understand Warhammer 40K? Because the reason I ask this question is because I think they're going to make a decision on storyline not based on this is a really cool story from Warhammer, or this, really services people that are already gigantic fans of it, because they need to reach a wider audience. Like Amazon, while interested in the audience space that already loves Warhammer, like they need to recoup the costs of what this will be, need to appeal to a much larger swath of an audience, right? So what storyline do you think is the most accessible and is the most likely that they could choose for this series?
For the wide audience?
Yeah.
That's a kind of interesting thing with Warhammer is it doesn't appeal to the wide audience. It's like dark, gritty, horrible space fantasy.
That's why
which is kind of a strange thing to like. You can't just offer that to everybody. So, and it essentially has no love story at all in it.
Thank goodness.
Like there's like 3 love stories in it, which I hope they don't make it like a love story unless somebody like falls in love with somebody and it happens to be Slaanesh, which would be really interesting. I don't know what they could do. They could just start it off as Space Marines coming in, cleansing your planet, and you realize that you're inferior, and you just go, okay, these guys are the best. I do believe in the Emperor. I want to live. And then you kind of start your own climbing through the ranks as like, anybody who maybe does some trials to become a Space Marine.
I can't think of a more fitting opening than just like carnage is happening, Space Marines arrive, and then all the humans just stop and stare at them because they're like, oh my God, they're real.
Or I don't even know what these things are, but they're killing that stuff, and that stuff is really bad.
Yeah.
So I like these guys. Like,
oh, totally.
It could just be you're on a little farming planet, nothing crazy, and all of a sudden these Tyranids start coming out of the woodwork, and your planet's getting completely overwhelmed, and then Space Marines arrive, beat back the Tyranid, realize that your planet's gone, and take the rest of the people off that planet to indoctrinate them into. Like, oh, you can't be on this farming planet anymore. Okay, well, now you just work in like a mine until you die.
Welcome to the Grimdark.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Another thing they could do, they could just start doing the Horse Heresy. They could start it right at the Siege of Terra. Like, huge action. So much happens.
Interesting. Okay.
It could even be a Space Marine, like, recanting his tales to a memorizer or Remember what?
I think it's Remember. I can't remember.
Yeah, it could just be that.
I need one right now because I can't remember.
Yeah, I forgot. And that way you could have like that, those 2 roles kind of staring at 2 people staring at each other across a dark room. Who?
There's just so much IP. They could do short stories. They could do tons of stuff.
Yeah.
Personally, to answer my own question before we move on to the next topic, I actually hope that they zoom in a lot. And the reason I hope that they zoom in a lot is because
Henry Cavill? Yeah, you want them to zoom in on that
I really want them to zoom in and really focus on Henry Cavill, yeah.
You want to see him in that Space Marine suit going,
yeah, I want to see it.
Just cock his arms.
That's all I need. No, what I hope is that they zoom in a lot. And the reason that I hope that is because, honestly, like, the 40K universe is really, really vast. It's really complicated. It's one of the most awesome IPs, personally, like fantasy IPs that's out there. However, it is also really like it is not a digestible universe.
It takes a long time to chew.
Oh yeah, and anybody that's first coming in has no clue what I'm talking about. Whenever I go into this, they're always like, "What?" Like, and so the reason that I hope that they zoom in and tell maybe a story of like, a rogue trader, perhaps. They have like a Han Solo type rogue trader character, right? Because you could make one up. There's so many of them, right? doesn't have to be directly lifted from the lore, right? It can be an interesting new character that maybe does have some kind of love story possible, because that is possible.
No,
right?
Steve. No. Bad Steve.
I'm just saying but you make it good. You don't make it sappy or lame. Like, you make it an interesting part of that actual story. And then what he needs to do is he needs to go in and, like, maybe he's infiltrating some kind of forgotten complex. He gets, like, his ragtag team of, like, mercenaries and rogue traders, interesting band of characters, ragtag team of, Tomb Raiders, effectively. Then they, like, end up having to fight, like, a gene stealer or something, and we get some crazy alien vibes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that, yeah, exactly. Yeah, we get some mad alien vibes, and then they have to bail because then, like, a Space Marine gets there or something. I don't know. Who knows? And we get to see a little bit of everything, right?
The ideas are endless.
But I hope that they zoom in and tell a story about a character and not a story about factions, because it's just so intense.
Yeah,
it's
a lot.
so wide. It's so vast. But give me a really interesting character. Maybe played by Cavill, I don't know. But give me a really interesting character that I identify with. So that's why I think it has to be a human, right? Because a Space Marine is not identifiable. Like, that's not a human anymore.
They're not supposed to be.
They're not supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
A Gene Stealer, not identifiable, right?
No, but they could even have the starting of the story is like him beginning the trials pre-Space Marine. Like, the Space Wolves, you have to go out on Fenris and kill a wolf and bring back the pelt, and then you go through the paddling of the swollen ass, and they just go pop, pop. They just beat the crap out of you, essentially.
I thought you had to be a neophyte before you went out to kill the wolf.
No.
Like, you had to survive the first part of the process.
That is the first part.
Yeah, I think they slam you full of gene seed and send you out there.
Yeah, so you're
if
already
you survive.
Yeah, if you
No, I think you have. I think, but that's pre-gene seed.
I'm pretty sure you have.
Wolf, you get the gene seed.
Yeah.
You get all ramped
You
up.
have,
and
you
then
have
they
to
send
survive
out there.
that first part. Like, you have
I
now
guess that
survived
would
the
make
first
sense.
transformation
Yeah,
into
yeah,
like
yeah.
a scout, and
Yeah.
then you go out, and if you succeed, then they complete your transformation.
Yeah.
Yes, but either way, like, going through any of those grueling trials.
Oh yeah, that'll be terrible.
Or
Ruthless.
like drinking the blood of Sanguinius or whatever, and just having like insane flashbacks, which could piece the story together in a big way for people who don't know
Absolutely.
a lot of it. You could, just show him drinking it and then going like, having like a seizure, and he has visions of the future and the past and
Not Space Jesus.
and all that. Yeah.
So, I mean, there are lots of different ways that it could go, but I do hope that we get a character that we follow and that we understand it and it makes sense, because I think that's the best way to guide people through this universe is through the eyes of someone that they identify with. But let's leave that for a second. Actually, let's leave that for the rest of the episode. So,
That's fair.
That's fair.
We're good.
We're
We've
just all
talked about it.
speculating on things we want to see.
Yeah.
A bunch of fanboys going
We're just like,
squealing away.
Warhammer!
Yeah.
Show me on TV.
On the TV box. So now let's talk a little bit about your road to LVO. So LVO is less than a month away.
Yeah.
Oh, we're so close.
Ooh, and for those of you that don't know, the Las Vegas Open is a gigantic tournament in Las Vegas. And there's usually close to like 1,000 players or something like that.
Should be more this year.
Should be more
now
this
that
year.
COVID's kind of died down.
Yeah, so I think that this is going to be a wild experience. And the last episode that you saw, we talked about your list. So we sat down and we worked through choosing secondaries. We worked through...
Was that the last episode that came out?
It was, yeah, because we had so many technical problems. Thank you, all the little nerdlings in our devices. So because that's the context that everybody has... How has the list been doing? So give us a quick first, Mike, give us a rundown, remind everyone what is in your list, and then maybe tell us one or two interesting stories from all the playtesting that you've been doing.
So the list is doing really well. Essentially, in that other episode, we figured out just by spitballing with each other, the most important thing is obviously getting your secondaries and scoring primary. So just scoring points in the game. Not every army does it well, so we kind of boiled down for Chaos Marines what is going to score high most likely as often as possible. We ended with Word Bearers, and essentially you just need to more or less hold the middle, and then we formulated a way that I can kind of attack the opponent's deployment zone and zone out. Everything's going super well. basically scores max secondaries or close to almost every game. I haven't run into too many troubling lists. I've played almost everything except for Knights and Imperial Guard. And the new Guard aren't out yet. But it's a big block of Possessed, a big block of Terminators, some characters for support. And fortunately, those units score. And it works.
So what? Just give us a top-down full recount of the list. So what are your HQs?
Oh, okay. So I'm taking Master Possession. So he's got the regen, and then the Word Bearer's Relic that gives him +1 to cast and knows an additional power. Pretty good. He can curse an enemy and then get +1 to wound for my demon units in the list. That's for shooting and combat. And then he can also bring guys back to life, as well as give a 4-up invulnerable save, which is absolutely clutch when you know something's coming to you and you just have a wall up. And then I have a Dark Apostle, which is essentially the chaplain for Chaos Space Marines. And he's my Warlord. He gives me more command points back, which is so good for the Warlord trait. And he can do 2 litanies, which is key because one of the best litanies in the entire game is, I don't remember what it's called, but essentially Trans-Hitman, where you pick a core unit, it can't be hit on anything better than 4, and you can't reroll hits against it. It's unreasonably powerful, to be honest. It really is. And then he has another power that lets him just pick a core unit, which is just my Terminator blob, but that's all that needs it. And they get +1 to wound as well. So there's a lot of +1 wound rolling around in the list.
Makes it hit extra hard.
It makes it hit extra hard when it needs to.
Yeah.
And then he can give 6-up Feel No Pain because he's Marcus Each, and he can do all reroll hits in combat because he's a chaplain. So he's a lot of options. Or not a chaplain, Dark Apostle. Do you have a question, Steve?
I entirely forgot that I don't even remember what it's called either, Trans-Hitman or whatever. I totally forgot that it also stops you being able to re-roll against them.
Yep.
Yeah. It's like a Blessings of Bellicor is what it probably should be called.
It's way too powerful.
Yeah.
Like what?
But take it. Take it. It's really good. And then I have a Terminator Sorcerer, and he's there just for extra support. He gives warp time so a unit can really gain ground. Usually I just give it to himself to get forward and then do Warp Ritual in the center of the board where I want to be for the Word Bearer's secondary. And then just some extra smiting and offensive damage. I initially took the takeaway, or Death Hex, the takeaway invulnerable save, but I found that just having the option to do those mortal wounds, sometimes you need them, like if you're fighting Satan God or things that are wound capped. Just being able to pump out some mortal wounds makes a big difference. But mostly he's there to move things around, do a couple mortal wounds, and do warp time in the center of the board.
What about your troop choices? What did you take for troops?
So for troops, I have 2 units of 10 cultists with auto guns, and then 1 squad of 5 Marines, all with chainswords. Sergeant has 2 chainswords. They usually hang back, do actions, and then run forward and take objectives mid-game or late game. Then for the juicy parts of the list, 10 possessed Marines, which are awesome. And they have the Black Rune, which usually throws my opponents off because they are so used to seeing it on the Terminators. And then a squad of 5 possessed. So the nice thing about the 5 possessed is turn 1, mathematically, they move far enough to actually get the Word Bearer's secondary on the first turn. It works very, very well.
Oh.
It's nice little juice.
That's something that you and I sat and crunched numbers and actually measured everything out.
Yeah.
Center of board.
5 of them can do it.
Because they move so fast.
Yeah.
They can 5 of them positioned in the right way.
Yeah.
At the right spot can do it.
Can get there.
You have to be at the exact spot and be positioned in a backwards triangle.
If there's terrain in the way, they're boned.
If you're that way, then the semicircle that you try to move into, the circle that you try to move into, the 2 guys stick their asses out.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to be forward heavy in your.
So you're
on
reverse
the,
Mighty
on the line.
Ducks.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
You have to put them on the line. And then I've got 10 Terminators, all with Stormbolters and accursed weapons. And then 2 of them have chain fists because sometimes you run into those large vehicles, knights, that sort of thing that you're going to get into combat with, and having chain fists make a big difference because essentially a Thunderhammer, that Ep04, against vehicles. And those 2 large blocks just kind of bully the center because I need to hold it. And then what else do I have? Oh, a squad of 5 Havocs, so the Devastators with all autocannons, 2 Venom Crawlers, and 2 Helldrakes. So the list doesn't shoot super hard, but what it does do is has a lot of AP2 2 damage, reasonably long range shooting, which I can effectively get rid of some medium density targets on the first turn with that shooting. So like infantry in the open with the Helldrakes flying up and either move blocking, which is so good sometimes, or sniping out characters that people just didn't expect to die. They have been such a huge performer. The fact that you take 2 of them, so good. If you don't go first, Word Bears have this luxury that you can just ignore, or you can turn 1 shot into damage 0, but it's before you roll your save. So if someone shoots you with, like, I don't know, what are those Devastator Necron guys that shoot 3D3
heavy
damage?
Destroyer? Yeah.
The heavy destroyers, they only shoot once. So if, they hit the flyer and you go, I'm not even going to roll for this, I'm just going to make it go 0 damage.
Yeah.
It keeps them in the game for that first turn. It's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Totally, and it lets those like the heavy Locust Destroyer thing or the stray multi-melt a hit. It just takes those things that are like, this shouldn't be doing as much damage as it's doing.
Right.
No.
You can only do it twice a game, but you only need to be twice. Like if you could use it every turn, it'd be way too overpowered.
Right. Yeah, it'd be too good.
But the list runs really well. I often feel like I'm on the back foot where I'm kind of stretched a little thin because I have all my points in this big wall. But usually people are so concerned about the wall that they don't come around.
They're not addressing the other problems.
They're not addressing the other problems.
Yeah, their target priority is scrambled because they're trying to figure out how to deal with can't be re-rolled, only hit on 4 Terminators.
Yeah. And they're markers each, so they ignore the first damage too.
And possessed that with their toughness 5 and their -1.
Yeah.
To be wounded.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's a lot of like durability in
very
in
tough
those units.
units.
All with 3 wounds as well.
Yeah. So my big concern is coming up against someone like a Knight player that's just dishing out so much damage 3 at range because I don't have a very good response for dealing with tough armored units at range at all.
Guard as well.
Guard is going to be a problem, but
Yep.
they're not out yet.
Yeah, and I don't believe they're being used in LVO unless they get a book. I don't know. I'm not going to LVO this year, so I haven't done a ton of research.
Well,
into
Cadia
it,
Stands has a book in it, but you mean like a FAQ?
Yeah, a fact / like a book that people
They
can
don't
purchase.
they don't consider it out until it's released to the public, so you can only get that book in that box, like the Beast Snagas box.
Yeah.
Like the orcs weren't technically out for like a month or something.
Oh, it was longer than that.
Yeah, it
They
was
were out
brutal.
for a long time.
Flamers in every chaos list. And it's
Chaos Space Marines 18. Essentially, it would be your lists. Take out a couple things, add 18 Flamers.
which is really easy to do because they're dirt cheap.
Yeah. Essentially,
Yeah.
just take out both Helldrakes, and you almost have enough for 18 Flamers.
I have more
That
than
hurts my soul a little.
Yeah.
Yeah, that hurts my soul. Wild. Huh. Well, on that crushing visual,
Mm-hmm.
on that crushing visual, from all of us here at Hyperspace Hobbies, and from the heroes of Hyperspace, Mike, Ian, and myself, Space Marine Steve, have a great rest of your night.
What if they watch in the morning?
I don't know. Have a good lunch.
But what if it's
it is
after
What if it's
lunch?
after lunch? Okay.
We'll deal with it.